Hey guys, today I'm going to do a review of Spider-Man Torment by Todd Mcfarlane. Now this is the Premier Classic hardcover edition of the story. I believe the most recent release was in a omnibus of all of the solo, adjectiveless Spider-Man stories by Todd Mcfarlane, but it's very out of print and I don't have it, so I'm instead just going to look at this Premier hardcover that I have. So let me explain what this is. Basically what this is the Spider-Man run by Todd McFarlane's beginning. Now I bet you're wondering, didn't he start on Amazing Spider-Man? He did, but this is Spider-Man, not Amazing Spider-Man, just Spider-Man. So it's often referred to as adjectiveless Spider-Man. So, which is kind of an ironic title. I mean, you're giving an adjective to a title with no adjective, but I digress. Basically, this collects the first story arc of that run, which was issues 1 to 5. So, basically, this edition just collects the issues and a few bonus features. It's not as in-depth as an omnibus. It's not even as big as an omnibus, but I have to say, the print quality is better than an omnibus that I've had. It's phenomenal print quality. It reprints the story beautifully. So as with my typical reviews, I'm just gonna go over the story and just comment on the story as I tell you the plot synopsis. So spoilers abound, folks. So the story begins. We just see the streets of New York and Spider-Man is swinging around. And then we hear doom. Doom, doom, doom. What the hell is doom? Well, basically, it's this drum from this character we don't see who is trying to awaken the lizard. And it's not Curt Connors. I just want to stress that. It is never explicitly stated if it's Curt Connors, but I don't think it is. And then we see Peter and Mary Jane just talking to each other, because this was back when they were actually married, so it was the pre-Joe Quesada days. And then the lizard starts going around murdering people, and Spider-Man is completely unaware of this. And that's the entire first issue. And that goes with my first problem. This whole issue is nothing story-wise. It's like every issue has like a minute worth of story for 22 pages. So it's essentially a 5-minute long story, and each chapter is a minute long. I mean, it's not actually going to take a minute to read. It might take 5 minutes, but it's not going to take long, and you can tell this is the first written material by Todd McFarlane. And what's funny is it's some of his best artwork. I think this might be my favorite Todd McFarlane art out of all of the art he's ever done, because it's just so beautifully done. It's such that perfect peak of his career, but the writing is just plain awful, and even Todd is better than this, because Todd did do some pretty okay writing for the first couple of issues of Spawn, in my opinion. So I don't know why this has just turned out like it did. Probably because it is his first real gig. So then we go to chapter 2, and basically the lizard is killing more people, and this is one of the stupidest parts of the book right here. 2 stupid moments in a row. They transition the death of these people and their blood, which says blood red, and then it transitions to jelly. Jelly? Really? That's the best you could come up with, Todd? Come on. Then Peter sees in the newspaper 2 more dead, and he sees Connors, or Connor, written in the wall. And basically, this is one of the stupidest parts of the story. Why is this here? They don't ever explain if this is actually Curt Connors or not as the lizard. And they don't explain why he wrote that if this actually isn't Curt Connors. It's just stupid. It makes no sense. And then Peter storms off to go find the lizard, and then the same mysterious figure from earlier dumps a spider and a lizard into a pot of boiling blood, and then the doom starts all over again. And yeah, it's the lizard. He shows back up, and it's kind of like a horror movie for a few pages, and then Spider-Man gets poisoned somehow. They don't really explain how, but it just says poison over and over again. It's just, it's dumb. But then the lizard shows back up for more after Spidey thinks he accidentally killed him. And that's chapter 2. So then chapter 3 is essentially just him and the lizard fighting for more pages until the lizard knocks Spider-Man out, and he throws Spider-Man into an alleyway. And then Spider-Man wakes up and he sees Kraven the Hunter, who is supposed to be dead at this point in the comics. So then, in the next chapter, he sees Kraven, and he finds out it's actually the ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, they don't really say what she exactly is, of Kraven. And basically, Spider-Man never finds out what her motive is, but we find out that her motive is to basically kill Spider-Man because she fell in love with Kraven, and Kraven killed himself in Kraven's Last Hunt. Just look up that story, Kraven's Last Hunt, if you want more context, because I don't want to be here all night, because I've already said tons of shit about a story with barely any story. I don't want to go into a story that has a lot of stuff going on. And then as they fight some more, the gas line gets hit somehow, and the fire gets in the gas line, and then a building explodes. And yeah, that's a pretty saying of what it is. Like, Spider-Man gets beaten like a damn rag doll throughout this whole story. I just felt bad for the guy in this story. Torment is a good name. Like, this story does have good moments, don't get me wrong. It's just poorly written. Like, there was a good story in here, a great dark Spider-Man story, but it's just not well written. But basically it ends with Spider-Man taking care of the situation and getting back home and all that, and then the lizard, oh no, he comes back, and to my knowledge, they don't ever follow up on this because Todd left. And yeah, this story gets A+ art-wise, but it's probably like a C- at best for writing, because again, the story is great. There's a great plot in here. It's just the motivation of the villain, the whole Connors thing, the whole doom, all this stuff just... Oh, and this here, it says to rise above it all. It repeats that line over and over again. To me, a line like that, it has to have some sort of weight. Like, in a story like this, where it's going to repeat something, it's got to have, like, some sort of weight or meaning behind it. But here, it just... It doesn't have any meaning. It just says, rise above it all, over and over again, for no reason. So then for bonuses in the back, you get some articles and cartoons and stuff about Todd Mcfarlane from the 90s. And what I find interesting is McFarlane makes a statement about right here. You can pause it and read it, where basically McFarlane says that he doesn't think he's the creator of all these poses that he puts Spider-Man in. Because so many people you see online credit Todd McFarlane for that. And McFarlane himself says, no, Steve Ditko did that before I did. Or at least I thought Steve Ditko did. So I find that interesting. And then it has all the variant covers, because for those unaware, this comic was basically the start of the collector's market bubble, and that eventually bursted. Shows the trade paperback covers and all that. So, again, it's a nice book. It's got great reprinting quality for a great artwork. It's just the story itself isn't that good. How much you want to read this or buy it is entirely dependent on how much you like Todd McFarlane as an artist. Because do not buy this going in expecting one of the greatest Spider-Man stories. Can't repeat that enough. But on the whole, this book gets a recommendation for Todd McFarlane or artwork fans, but for everyone else, it's a pass. So that's all I have to say for now, guys. I'll see you later.